We've talked about remembering, restarting, refocusing, revelation. Last week we talked about what is revelation? What's a biblical revelation look like? And I shared with you kind of my grace story, or part of it, that I understood I was saved, but didn't fully understand or have a revelation of God's grace. And when I did, it changed me. It changed the way I interacted with the world, like how I saw myself, where my self-worth came from, but then it also changed my relationships. Did you hear that? Relationships. So today we're going to be talking about relationships. When I realized that God truly loves me unconditionally, I couldn't look at other relationships the same, right? Like if I'm supposed to do what Jesus does, then I should be loving unconditionally. If it really, like none of my past mattered, I kind of got that. Like that part made sense. Still renewing my mind, but that made sense. But then it was like, even if I mess up today, He still loves me. And the part that really got the gears grinding and probably saw some smoke was that even the good things that I do doesn't make God love me more. That one took some time for me. I was like, so you mean, like if I go to the pregnancy care center or I go to a senior center and help out, like somehow like I don't get points for that, or Jesus doesn't love me more? Like wouldn't you love me more if I was doing things you want me to do? Like that just makes sense, right? And that changed a lot. That's the Agape Love, right? So C.S. Lewis has a book on the different loves, and in the Greek language, you have these different words for love, and agape is that fully unconditional love, like not a brotherly love, like filial love, like Philadelphia. Like agape love is that full God love, and I'm not sure I'd ever heard about that before. And it like just kind of blew my mind that I could do nothing and God would love me just the same. And then as I started to realize it and get that revelation, it was just pure freedom, which just caused me to love Jesus even more, right? Like I'm not earning anything with this love. And then it started to change all of my relationships, right? Like, so if my marriage is to be a representation of how Jesus loves the church, it's in Ephesians 5 probably, probably towards the end of Ephesians 5, is that metaphor that God gives us, that the church is the bride of Christ. And there's a really neat metaphor there. It takes some time to dive into it. But if that's what my marriage is supposed to be like, the unconditional peace where, Ephesians 5:25, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. If I'm supposed to give myself up for my wife, and then I'm supposed to love her unconditionally, no matter what she does or does not do, I am to love her to the best of my ability. Whoa, that's different. Like that's not what I'd planned on doing. And I plan on loving my wife well, but you would think that if she did something that I didn't like or like seemed bad or mean, that I would have the right to be upset about that and love her differently. But no. And you probably don't say that sentence out loud, but that's in our brains somewhere, right? That we have to earn love. And so when Jesus' love was transformed for me, it changed the way I saw my wife. And I wasn't perfect right away, but I want to love her unconditionally, whether she does the things that I think she should do or not. And then even when she does, right? When she does all these great things for me, it's like, yeah, of course. I love you, right? Same thing with my kids. What about when my kids, mess up or they try something new and it doesn't work out? They're in an environment of grace where they are fully loved, and that love does not change for them. And they know that now, right? Like they know that we have that conversation, like what you did is not how it should be done. We're going to do that differently. You may need to apologize. I love you. Always will, no matter what. You can poke me in the eye, and I'm still going to love you. And yes, I've had some kids try to poke me in the eye. And yes, I still love them. But my relationship with Jesus then forms and affects every other relationship that I have. And that's how it should work. right? So then I don't have to try really hard in all these other relationships. It's probably saved me a bunch of money on books. You should still read books and learn those things, but the heart of it is already done, right? I'm not trying to come up with fixes to interact with my kids or to show my wife that I love her. Like, she knows that, like, in the depths of my soul, I love her unconditionally, and I always will. Because she knows that, like, that love comes from Jesus. Like, she knows how connected I am to Jesus, and how much I love Jesus is how I'm going to love her. Jesus will never leave me nor forsake me. I'm not going to abandon him. I will never abandon her or my kids. And that's a great foundation to then do life from, right? There's still more to life than that. You can't just sit around, Ryan loves me, and I eat potato chips. Like, it's not that, but it's the foundation. And now you can go try anything. You can be right, you can be wrong, and you're going to be loved at the beginning, middle, and end of the day. You'll be loved. And it affects all of our relationships. It affects your relationship with your neighbor, with people in our church family. But you have to have that revelation first, your relationship with Jesus. And I think it's worth noting, to give Jesus and God credit for the work that they did to create that relationship, right? Because religion, and we can get trapped in this, religion is man trying to reach up to God. Right? So in the Bible, in the Old Testament, you read about idols. We see that now still in some religions, where it's like you have to do these things to be holy in God's sight. And I know it's like the end of the month and you've put your nativities away, but I think you could have them out all the time. So, but Jesus came in a form that could give us a hug, in a form that we could understand, in a form that we could form a relationship with. He came fully God, fully human. The only way that we could really wrap our heads around it. Right? For thousands of years, there were groups and sects that created wooden idols or metal idols so they could see it, even though it didn't make any sense. And deep down, I think people know that, right? You look at this statue of Buddha and you know that it's just a statue, like somebody made that. A person made that. So Jesus came fully human, fully man, or fully God, so that he could have a relationship with you. He loves you so much that he came down from the seat of deity to be fully man, fully human, so he could give you a hug, right? He shook our hands, he hugged, he could eat with us, because that's how much he loves us. That's a God that you can put your faith into. That's the God that's worth following. That's the God worth committing your life to, refocusing to form that relationship. So this week's next step is a culmination of the month, if you will. Be with Jesus. What does that mean? Does that sound weird? Great. Go sit in a room, let it be awkward and weird, if that's the case, and figure it out. Just sit there and say, okay, Jesus, I want to be with you. Ryan says I can do that. It's in the Bible, and I want that. Listen for the still small voice. It's not the awkward one, that's yours. His is telling you that he loves you. Put some worship music on. Let some of our worship friends guide you in that process of being with Jesus. Read the Gospels. Listen to the words of Jesus. Listen to how he interacts with the sick, the poor, the lame, the outcasts. Read the beginning of Matthew. Read the Beatitudes. Those are the people that Jesus is seeking out. He's seeking you out. So make yourself available. That's your job this week. Man, what a great way to start off the year. Right? Remembering all the great things that God's done for us. Refocusing our efforts so that we're focusing on the values that we want. We're getting in the Word. We're going to restart the good habits that we know we should have. We're searching out this revelation of God's love for us so that we can have a relationship with Him. And when you have a relationship with Jesus, it will change every other relationship in your life. You bring in the unconditional love of a God that wants to know you, that does know you, and wants to be connected with you in relationship. And it will change things. Man, that's awesome. That's my prayer for you, that as you go and seek Him, you will find Him. I have no doubt. All right, friends, go dive into that. In the meantime, don't be a stranger, because we're all neighbors.